You are losing interviews in the first 90 seconds, and it's not because of the tough questions 20 minutes in. And it's not because you missed a technical detail, because the very first thing you say when the interviewer asks you, tell them a bit about yourself. And by the time you're 2 minutes in, decision is probably already made, even subconsciously. The rest of the interviewer is just confirming it. So in the next 12 minutes, I'm going to give you the exact 3-part structure I use with every single candidate to answer, tell me about yourself in 90 seconds flat. I'm going to show you the 3 mistakes that destroy most people's first answer and why interviewers write them off before the second question. I'm going to walk you through a real candidate's before and after, word for word, and I'm going to show you the one thing about your delivery that matters more than the actual script. Because here's what the research says. Interviewers form an impression from you in the first 30 to 60 seconds. And for phone and video interviews, they're not even actually seeing you. And about 80% of the impression is built on the tonality of your interview answers. It's not your CV, it's not your grades, it's not even the content of your answer. Just how you sound in those first 90 seconds, which means if your opening answer is a rambling CV chronology delivered in a flat, nervous voice, the hiring manager has already decided. And the 4 hours of practice you did the night before is not going to save you. So let me start with the thing that almost nobody realizes, which is what the interviewer is actually listening for when they ask for that first question. And here's the thing that you need to understand. When the interviewer asks me, tell me about yourself, they're not asking for your life story. They're not asking for you to repeat your CV in that chronological order. They're not even really asking a question, being really honest. It's a warmth test. In the first 60 seconds, they're checking 2 things. Can I trust you and can I rely on you? That's it. Your entire opening answer is about building warmth first, and then the competence comes after. And most candidates, they flip that order. They drive straight into the job titles and the degrees and come across as cold and rehearsed, and they become forgettable. And that is actually the really good news if you've been stressing out about remembering a perfect script, because the first 90 seconds is not a memory test. It's a connection test. So I had a candidate called Lewis. He was a final year economics student. He had a decent CV and he was applying to graduate roles in consulting. He had done 7 interviews and got rejected from every single one. And when we sit down and we took a look at the feedback, it was the same thing every time. Nice guy, but didn't really stand out. So what we did is we recorded him answering, tell me about yourself under practice conditions, and we played it back and we just listened. No visuals, just the audio. And you could hear it in the first 10 seconds. He was listing, my name is Lewis, I'm a final year economics student, I've done internships X, Y, and Z, and it was all in a flat voice, like it was chronological, there was no hook, he sounded like every other candidate applying for the same role. So we rebuilt the opening using a structure I'm about to walk you through in a minute. It's the same facts, just a completely different delivery. And on his next interview, which was a second round at a mid-tier consulting firm, the interviewer actually stopped him after the answer and said, I've got to tell you, that is one of the best opening answers I've heard all week. And he got an offer about 10 days later. And I'm sharing Lewis's story because what I'm about to tell you actually works if you apply it in the right way. So step 1 is the structure, because you can't just wing an answer. You need a clear 3-part frame that you can adapt in the moment to any interviewer into any question. And the structure that I use with every candidate is identity, value, and motivation. So part 1 is identity. This is who you are, but it's not about like, I'm a final year student at X university. Identity is your professional brand in one sentence. What do you do? What are you known for? And what actually makes you interesting? So for Lewis, the identity line we built was, so I'm an economics student with a weird obsession for commercial side of retail. Basically how big companies quietly lose millions by mispricing their own products. And that is specific, and it has that personality. It names the actual thing he's interested in, not just strategy consulting. In the interview, it immediately has that mental image, that warmth, that connection, that imagination about who Lewis is. Now, part 2 is value. This is where you briefly prove that you can actually do what you do. So 2 or 3 specific sentences delivered as evidence to the identity that you've just claimed. And it's not a chronology, it's evidence. So for Lewis, it was, I started getting into it during an internship at a boutique retail consultancy, where I spent 3 months understanding a client's pricing strategy, which ended up being about 12% margin uplift over the quarter. And I've been running a similar piece of work for a friend's e-commerce business on the side, just for fun. And you can notice what is happening here. Like, he's backing the identity claim with 2 concrete examples, one which is professional and one which is a bit more personal. And it's got specific numbers in it. And the phrase just for fun just quietly signals that genuine interest, not just CV padding. And that warmth and that competence in the same breath. And then there's part 3, which is motivation. This is why you're here in this specific interview for this specific role. And this is where 90% of candidates just destroy it by saying something generic like, I've always wanted to work in a top tier firm. Like, cut that out completely. Motivation has to be specific. Why that company, why the role, and why now? And then the answer for Lewis was, and what drew me to this role specifically is the fact that your retail price worked on the Selfridges price architecture rebuild, which is the exact kind of problem I've been trying to teach myself at home. And I'd like the chance to work on something like that properly. That closes the loop, and you've told them who you are, you've proven it, and you've shown that you actually researched them. It's 90 seconds answer, and that's it, done. So step 2 is then the what not to do, because there are 3 specific mistakes that kill this answer, and I see them on nearly every single mock interview I watch. So mistake number 1 is CV chronology. I did this, then I did that, then I did this. It's just a list, and lists have no hook. The interviewer has already read your CV. They're asking a story, they're not asking for a summary. The second mistake is then the generic hook. I've always been passionate about finance. I've always loved working with people. These sentences tell the interviewer absolutely nothing, and you need to bin them immediately. They could come from literally any candidate on the planet. Specificity is everything. I got into finance because I spent a year helping my dad renegotiate his business loans. That's a hook. I've always been passionate about finance is just noise. Now, mistake number 3 is the rehearsed delivery. If you memorize the answer word for word and recite it, your tone just goes flat. Your eyes just go distant and the warmth just vanishes. You're meant to sound like a person having that conversation with the interviewer, not just some actor reading a script. So you need to know that 3-part framework. Know your evidence, but let the actual sentences come out naturally. That slight imperfection is way more convincing than just a polished monologue where you're trying to stress yourself out, cramming in every single keyword you can think of. So step 3 is the delivery, because even if your script is perfect, if your tone is wrong, you lose the attention. So here's the thing that most candidates do not realize. On phone and on video interviews, the interviewer is building that mental image of you based on almost entirely how you sound. Your body language basically collapses into your voice. If you're monotone, you sound bored. If you're rushed, you sound nervous. If you're energetic and warm, you sound like someone they actually want to spend 45 minutes with. And importantly, you sound like someone they want to work with. So 3 practical things for you to change today. So the first one is stand up when you're in a video or a phone interview. It opens up your diaphragm, it puts real energy into your voice and stops you slouching into just a flat delivery. The second one is just smile on the first sentence, even on a phone call. It sounds weird, but it generally changes the tone of your voice. There is a reason why radio presenters smile when they talk. You can hear it through the audio. And then the third one is then just slow down. Almost everybody rushes the first answer because they're just nervous. And of course, that is normal. It's an interview. You want to do well. But a deliberate, slightly slower pace signals confidence, and it gives the interviewer time to actually absorb what you're saying. So aim for about 150 words a minute. Most nervous candidates are doing well over 200. And then step 4 is the practice, because the whole thing that falls apart is the first time you deliver this answer if it's an actual interview. Here's what I get every candidate to do before an interview round. They write out a 3-part answer, the identity, the value, and the motivation, in about 90 seconds when they've spoken it out loud. Record yourself saying it on the phone, play it back. Just ignore the words and just listen to the tone. Does it sound like somebody the interviewer would want to keep talking to, or does it sound flat and forced? And do that 5 times in a row. Don't memorize the script, but get comfortable enough with the structure, the actual words that come out fresh every time. And then, on the day of the interview, do it once more in 15 minutes before you log in. Like standing up out loud, full volume, it wakes up your voice and gets you ready mentally for the first 60 seconds of that interview. So look, if you're stacking up some interviews and you're getting rejected without really knowing why, it's probably not your CV. It's probably not your competency answers. It's the first 90-second impression. If you fix that one thing, you'll see a massive shift in how the rest of the interview actually plays out. And if you want the full system, I've put everything inside the Offer Accelerator. That is my step-by-step system for you to be landing multiple target job offers in 12 weeks or less. Your personal brand, your CV, your networking, your interview prep, all of it. Even the identity, value, motivation frame, the tonality drills, the full answer structure for competency questions. It's all in there. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. Like generally, even if you never touch it, just take this video and go and rebuild your tell me about yourself answer using the identity, value, and motivation framework. record yourself, play it back, and fix the tonality. That one exercise on its own will put you well ahead of nearly everybody else who's walking into that interview the same week.